So your view on the Middle East conflict seems to me right down the middle for intellectuals in Europe. Is that fair?
I think most intellectuals and historians are more sympathetic to Palestine than Israel. The new historians, the people who, because when Israel when Israel released a lot of their they declassified a lot of documents relating to the founding of the state. That's when the new historians, folks like Morris or Ilan Pape, Avi Shlaim, when these guys came about, and then the other guy was really good. I have his book on my desk. What the hell's his name again? So, Tom Segev, yeah. I've read like three of his books for his name. Um, Most of these guys took a critical view of Israel. Morris is actually the outlier politically. But yeah, so I think I'd be fairly mainstream, which shows that the profession. I mean, look, at the beginning of the war, there was a lot of social pressure not to go, even in Britain, not to go against Israel because of this horrible thing that happened to them. And I was like, I'm going to speak out even if it hurts me. And now it's like these kids are crazy. They're like a lot of them are. I'm not going to say most, but there are kids who are pro Hamas, and I have never taken this position. And I think it's liberalism. I can't. I understand the horrible argument that it's put the issue on the map and Palestinians are more likely to get a state now. That's the argument they make essentially. But the smarter ones among these pro Hamas people. But I mean, they massacred people, right? How can we condone this? That many of them do. So it's interesting how I also think this, Luke. I think that the Western Muslim and Arab diasporas, where if you look at polling right after October 7th, basically the overwhelming majority were against it. Not in the Middle East, they were for it mostly, but in the West, right? They thought it was wrong. I think they're moving in the direction of more people excusing it. Like, it's anecdotal. Like there was a Christian Lebanese friend of mine. She wouldn't strike you as a political radical. Who told me, just confessed to me, yeah, I would. I'm for what they did. She just confessed to me recently. I'm like, what the fuck? She's an American. She's not from Beirut or anything like this. Wouldn't be surprising if it, like, in the Middle East, they're all talking like this, or most people are. It's depressing. But I was actually in denial about this for a while, because if you look at like support for ISIS, which I think kind of stupidly, but nevertheless often Hamas is compared to, people don't like Muslims who like to say, oh, ISIS, but the overwhelming majority, according to all polling, were anti-ISIS. Even the majority even supported the coalition, the Americans killing them, right? So they didn't support ISIS. They do support Hamas. They do. Even Christians do. Like, there's a poll of Lebanese Christians right after October 7th that's 60% in favor of Hamas. So that I guess speaks to your worldview more, because when it came to ISIS, which didn't really have a national cause that inspired people, people were happy to say they're evil. What they're doing is wrong. In Arab people, in the Arab world. Yet when it comes to Hamas, they make excuses for it.
What significance do you see in the pro-Palestine, anti-Israel protests that have swept American college campuses over the past few months?
I think it's quite significant. I think that there's a strong analogy, not obviously a pretty simple one, to the Vietnam War protests. The protests were unpopular in the Vietnam era, but they did raise awareness about the issue. And I think the more awareness, public awareness is raised, the more hostility there will be to the war. So I think overall they're positive. I think also that the threat they pose allegedly is hugely exaggerated, like they're attacking Jews or whatever. I think that's mostly fake. So a lot of these people have really woke views of the world. So I'm not necessarily in lockstep with them ideologically, but I am sympathetic to the cause. And I think overall they're going to have a positive effect, even if they are not personally liked. Because remember, the anti-war protesters in the Vietnam era, the counterculture, they weren't popular among mainstream Americans, but they raised awareness about the issue, and they made people think about it.